Hey there, my gorgeous friends on the internet. In today's episode, we're going to create a super simple page transition using React. This is the simplest way I've found, so this is going to be the best tutorial. So stay tuned. Take a look. How cool does this look? Wow, amazing. Really excited. But before we get going, I want to thank today's sponsor, which is myself, developedbyed.com. Check out the amazing courses down in the description below if you're interested in upgrading your React skills, JavaScript skills, and any other skill that you want in this world. Maybe that's a bit too much and exaggerated, but there's awesome stuff to learn there. All right, let's get going. So starting off, we just have Next.js installed and I'm using Tailwind. If you're interested in learning more about this, I have a project that's already made like 2 or 3 weeks ago. You can find it. It's a full React project using Tailwind. But that's it. We're starting off completely scratch otherwise, but that's for styling. Okay, so what do we need for a page transition? Well, there's loads of packages out there, but probably the most popular one for React is called Framer Motion. And it's all right. It's not great, but it's all right. I'm just going to be honest with you. But let's install it. So just open up the terminal and say npm I Framer Motion like that. Let that sucker install. And then we're going to open up npm run dev and we can get going. Okay, so where should we start off? I think it's a navbar is a good start. We could make folders. It's just going to be one component, but why not? Let's call this components. And in here, we are going to make a new file called navbar.js. All right, cool. So now that we have that up and going, what we're going to do is create the function, export default function navbar like that. Okay, cool. And we are going to return some JSX. So what do we want for this? Well, let's do a nav like that. Okay, and then here I'll just have 2 links basically. Again, you can add more, but we're just going to keep it simple. So a ul li, just to keep everything nice and consistent. But actually here, we're going to need a link to travel between the pages, right? So you wouldn't use an anchor tag because we're in Next.js. You need to import something called link. So import link like that. All right. And then here, we're just going to add the link and we're going to add our list item in here. And we're just going to say home. All right, and the href for home is gonna be just a dash like that. Okay, and we're just gonna duplicate this one more time. And this is gonna take us, let's say, to contact. Okay, and I'm also gonna change the name of this to contact. Okay, so let's import this. And the place we're gonna import it is gonna be in our app.js here. All right, so what this is basically, this returns whichever page we are on. Okay, so if we go to /contact like that, this is going to dynamically render out that page. All right, so what we can do is if we add the nav on top here, that's always going to be there. It's not going to be re-rendered anymore. All right, and you can do the same to a footer if you want. You can add it below it. So let's import it here. We can say import navbar like that. And then all you need to do is add parentheses here and kind of just open this up like that. Paste it up there, and then right above it here, you can add your navbar like that. Error, what's the error? Don't know. Let's see. Okay, so you get this error because React is just it's so finicky, right? It doesn't allow you to render 2 components beside each other because that occurs in the framework world. So you need to add these silly little parentheses, not parentheses, but they're called fractions. You just need to basically wrap everything up in like a div. The only difference is this doesn't render a div out for you, and that's all. But to be fair, I think we're going to add styling to all of these. So we're just going to make it the div in the end. So take that, React. Okay, and there we go. We get to see all the lovely link tags, which is pretty cool. What else do we need? Let's see. Let's go back to the nav bar. This is looking quite good actually, so I think we're just gonna leave it like this, and then we can focus on making the pages. Okay, so we have our nav. Oh yeah, some styling. That's what I wanted to do. Let's go here to the nav, add a class name. We're gonna say text to Excel, like that. Font medium, and that should be good to go. All right, and then to the UL, we'll add a flex and a gap of 12. There we go, just to give it some space. We're gonna add padding and other stuff in just a bit, but that's essentially our nav bar. Okay, so let's do our homepage. I think that makes sense to do first. So let's head back over to our index.js, and here we're gonna import. Let's import our animation now. So it's called motion, like that, but we can rename it as M, just to keep everything shorter. Here you're gonna see, because we're gonna need to add it to each individual element, and if all of them have motion, it's just gonna look horrible. So let's not do that. So we'll rename it like that, and yeah, that's everything we need to import actually. Okay, so let's go down here below the head. Okay. Let's add a main tag here. Let me switch this over to React. There we go. And in here, we are going to have a div with a h1. All right. So this is going to be the big text. And we are going to call this Happy Pickle. Like that. This is Maxine's design company. That's coming soon. Stay tuned for more. Okay, so there it is. And then on this div here, we are gonna add a couple of classes. So we're gonna add a large margin Y. We're gonna add a bit of padding. We're also gonna add an overflow hidden, but not yet, because I wanna show you why. And then on this h1 here, we're going to add a class name of text6xl. Here we go, text center. And then on large screens, I can specify that I want the text on the right, text right. And large screen should also have a text. Let's see, we're going to make the size much bigger. So let's do here we go, text 9XL. Okay, so take a look at this. If I make this bigger, it's gonna line to that side, and it grows in size. So that's really cool. We're gonna need to add some fonts as well, because this doesn't look too nice yet, but that's okay. One thing at a time. Okay, so after this div here, we're gonna go out and we're gonna make two more divs. Div. And this is going to be basically two sections here. So two more divs, okay? And that's it, I promise. So another div and another div, and that's it. All right, because on this one, I just want to add a flex and justify between. Okay, and then all of these two divs can have columns of content in them. Okay. So in this one, let's do a h2 that says design. All right, and we can duplicate this twice, 1, 2, 2, and we can say company, and here 2022. Okay, and in this one we can say, let me just copy this over. We can have a h3 that says, this pickle gonna make you smile. Another h3 that says Scottish designs to make you happy. And the last one's gonna be cool contact for cool. Click contact for cool transition. That's it. Okay, there we go. All right, so now we have this kind of column layout going on here, which is pretty cool. All right, so that's essentially all the markup here. obviously can do more styling and stuff like that. So I guess for this, we can just add, let's just keep it like this, okay? We'll worry about it later. Let's head over to our contact just so we have both of our pages up and going. So let's go over to our pages. We can delete this API one, we don't need it. And we're gonna make a new file called contact.js. Cool. Okay, so in here, same stuff that we usually do. We export a default function contact like that. Don't you just wish you could just write simple divs without ever writing this ever again? I don't know. Is it just me? It might just be me. Loads of times I mess up this return and I don't know why it's not working and why my JSX is not showing up, but oh well. Okay, we're gonna create the main tag here, and we're gonna do the same thing as we did in the other one, which was to import this motion just like that. Cool. Okay, so now in here, let's add a div. And we're gonna pretty much have the same format where we have a h1 in its own section that says let's talk. And then we are gonna have another div out here. Div. Let's just save it now. If we head over to contact, we can actually see it. There we go. Let's talk. And now we'll do the crazy thing where we have a div with another div and another div, which is really fun if you ask me. Okay, so let's add another one in here. Let's start adding actually some class names so you can see what's going on. We'll add a flex and a flex gap of 40 to this first one. Okay. To this top one here, we'll add kind of the same thing we added to the other one, which was an MY of 96, P1, and that's it. All right, just like that. Cool. And then here on this inner div, we can add a class name of large text to Excel and a text of base. Okay, let's add the content in here. We'll add a page 4 saying find me. And after this one, we'll make another one. And here we are gonna add a large text of 6XL, a text of 2XL, and we'll do an underline to it as well. Okay. So there we go, we can see find me. That's cool. And here we'll just add a UL with some allies, and we're gonna call it a day. So let's do Twitter. There it is. Let's just duplicate this a couple more times like that. And we can do Instagram, LinkedIn, and Dribbble. Okay, you can add a link tags to this as well. Just wrap it the same way we did in the nav bar, and you are pretty much good to go. Okay, cool. What else should we do here? Oh, we'll just add a little padding to this. So what you can do is hold down Alt and click, and then you can just type class name. And as you can see, it just adds it to all of them. We'll just add a bit of padding bottom of 2. All right, that's looking pretty cool. Everything is still quite funny looking. This let's talk text doesn't work, so that's what we need to look at. It's because we never added anything to this. So we can just head over to our index and copy everything over from the H1 here and paste it on top of it. There we go, boof, done, cool. All right, so now we can pretty much navigate between both of these pages, which is fantastic if you ask me. What we need to do is add a bit of margin to this. So what we can do is head over here, right, to this div in the app, and we can just say py24. That's going to add some padding top and bottom, and then we can say px. Let's do 12. Okay, and then you can do for larger screens as well, just by saying LG. You can do px of 48 or something like that. So now when the screen becomes larger, look at that. Boom, cool. What fonts did I install? I don't remember. I think it was Lato. Yeah. Okay, so the way you can do that is download it off Google Fonts, and I'll just drag it in here for now. I'm gonna put the code up on GitHub as well, but you can literally download it from Google Fonts, drop it in your public file, and then what you can do is if you head over here to your Tailwind here, in the extend folder, you can add a font family like that. And then you can give it any name you want, so Lato Light, and then you just add it in there like that. And that's one step of the process. The second step would be to go to your global CSS. And in here, what you need to do is just define them using the font face. So let's go here, and there we go. You just add font face, the font family. Again, you pick the name here, so it should be the same as this one. And then you just navigate over to your public file folder with the file. And that's that. Simple as that. Okay, that's cool. So what we can do now is go over to, we'll just apply it to everything for now. Here, we'll do font Lato bold and hit save. There we go, cool. So we got that going, which is really nice. And yeah, I think we can start heading into the animation. So what do we need to do? Well, let's start with the home page, okay? So let's go over to the home page and use this motion thing that we imported up here. Okay, so essentially what you do is you change your elements by appending this motion tag on them. All right, so whatever thing you want to animate, in this case, let's say the whole page. All right, so it would be this big parent div, and you just add a motion dot to it like that. But since we renamed it, we can just do mdiv like that. All right, and this is going to be much cleaner than having that long motion tag. All right, did I sell that enough for you to rename it? Hopefully I did. Okay, and then you just define properties in here, like initial, which is where should it start from? Like maybe from opacity 0 to opacity 1. That would give us a nice fade in. So if I say something like opacity 0, all right, then this is basically an object in here. And then I can animate it to a opacity of 1. All right, so now as you can see, when I refresh, everything fades in. It's quite slow, it's super fast. So if I want to slow it down, you can also define a transition property here, like that. Again, just an object, and you can define a duration, let's say 0.75 seconds for this. Okay, refresh, let's see. See, that's much slower, much nicer. We can also do delays here. We can do easings. So let's add an ease to this of ease out, and you're gonna see that's gonna animate just slightly differently. All right, that's pretty cool. Yeah, let's keep it like that for now. Okay, that's pretty much everything we're gonna need here. So let's style this up a little bit, because what I want essentially to happen is for these two pages to kind of slide on top of each other. So let's add some styling here. I'll add a class name. And we're gonna change this to a text gray of 900. And I'm gonna add a position absolute as well. We're gonna say top 0, left 0, v full, which is going to do full width, and height full like that. And I'm going to add a BG of orange 100. All right, there we go. So you can see that. And then LG of 48 like that. And also a PX of 16 like that. Okay, so why am I doing this? I'm doing this because if I don't have position absolute here, if I remove it, as you can see, our home page is actually just this section here. Since we have our navbar separated and it's going to be rendered out on both pages, it's going to cut off this background for us. But if we add a position absolute, it's going to look like it's the full page actually. So it's kind of a little illusion that we're doing here, just so our effect takes up the whole screen. But we have a little problem now where the navbar is not showing up. So that's okay, we can go back and solve it. It has to do with just z indexes. It's just being covered up. So if you head over to the navbar here, we can add a z index of 20, something big like that, and a position of relative. And that's going to pop up now on the screen. All right, cool. So now what we can do is pretty much do the same thing to our contact. So let's go to contact and head over to the main tag here. We'll add a class name and we'll do the same thing. We'll say text gray 900. We'll do a position absolute, top 0, left 0, width full, height full. I think our dog Yoshi just did a big fart because it smells so bad. Oh my god. Whew. We'll add an intense red to this, so we'll do BG400 like that. And we'll do the same padding as well. Cool. There we go. So everything lines up quite nicely. Okay, and then we can pretty much copy paste over the same animation thingy here that we did, the initial, animate, and transition. Okay, so let's get that. Head over to contact, and again, remember to append this M to your main tag, and then we can paste this initial, animate, and transition. Okay, so now every time we visit a page, we have this animation popping in, which is cool. The problem is that there's no exit animation, right? It just poof, instantly flashes. So what we need to do is import something from Framer Motion that is going to detect when either a component or a page gets unmounted from the DOM. Okay, so it's going to recognize it, it's going to animate it, and once it's animated out, it's going to remove it. So what we need to do is basically wrap the components that are unmounting with something called animate presence. So we're going to head over to our app.js. And what's changing for us? This component, right? So we need to go here, right? And import. It's called, what is it called? Let's see. Animate presence, like that, from Framer Motion. Okay. Perfect. So just go over to the component that is gonna change and wrap it around with this animate presence. Just like that. Cool. And what else you need to do is add a key to this, all right? Animate presence needs to have a recognizable ID, I should say, to know what gets removed and what is being changed. Ugh, that's a tough one to say. So what we can do is, the simplest thing I found was to just use the router path name. So it's just going to look at, oh, we're on about, oh, we're on contact. And that's it. So what you can do is go here and say key equal to, And what we need to do is get that router. So you can just say here, router, we have this available here. You can say router.path name. That's it. Okay, really simple. Okay, cool. What we can also do is define if we want this beginning animation here when we initially visit the page. If you don't want it, then you can go here and say initial false. All right, and now when we visit the page, as you can see, we don't have the animation. But when we go over to here, it's gonna start animating. Okay, cool. Now we still don't have the exit animation, so we can head over to our home page, and just anywhere here we can say exit equal to. And now what I want to do is, yeah, let's just add an opacity to 0, okay, just to keep this simple. So when we exit the page and we head over to something else, we are gonna fade it out. So as you can see, it works. Really cool. Now the thing is, they happen at the same time. If you don't want it to happen at the same time, what you can do is go here to animate presence and say mode. I believe it was wait, like that. So now it's gonna wait for this to fade out, and then the other one's gonna fade in. All right. But we don't want that. What we want is for this to stay on top and for the other page to come in basically on top of it. Okay, so the way we can do that is we'll remove that and go over to our index, and basically on exit, I want this to stay static, right? I don't want anything to happen to it. So I'm just gonna say opacity 1. And then what I want to do is animate in the Y position. So I'm gonna say Y to 0%, so all the way on top of it. But the initial positions should start off from 100%, all right? So basically, we're pushing the whole section down below here, right? And when we visit the page, it's gonna slide up like that, as you can see. All right, so that's pretty cool. Now this one fades out now because we need to modify that as well. So we can just copy this over into here and just change it basically. Oops, just everything here like that. And if we take a look now, look at that. We get that cool sliding up effect. Now there's a couple of things that we should change, like this overflow here. The scroll bar is giving us trouble, which doesn't look too good. But that's simple. If we're making it like a one single page type website anyway without any scrolling, we can just go here and do. Okay, so I ended up removing everything from here actually and kept it simple and just added the overflow hidden here on the body and HTML, and that does it. So that's great. That's good to know. Okay, so we can close that up. We have our transition going, which is really cool. But now what I want to do is transition the text here and also these small link tags here. So how do we do that? Let's head over to our home page here. And this is fine. We're not gonna touch this. What we're gonna do is go down here to the H1 and we are gonna add a animate and set that equal to Y0. An initial position of Y 100%. So we're pretty much doing the same thing. We're gonna add a transition. So if we want to delay this, we can add it here, like 0.5, and the duration should be 0.5. I thought that looked pretty good. Now watch this. If we go over here and go back, nothing happens. Why? Because we need to add this M. Always add the M. Okay, let's see. As you can see, oh, we're in contact, by the way, which is fine. But look at that, it slides up slightly, which doesn't look too good. So what I thought would be cool is this div here, right? We'll add an overflow hidden to that. And that way it gets completely hidden. So it kind of slides out like that. So that's the reason why I added another div here and not just the H1, just so we can do this cool effect, okay? So just have the H1 and add overflow hidden on the container, and then you can move this down and it's gonna have that cool effect. Nice, lovely. And finally, if we wanna animate these link tags here, what I like to do to be able to reuse it and not to kind of overwhelm our code here, well, we're gonna do kind of the same thing we did here, which is gonna be to wrap all of our allies with a div so we can have the animation where it kind of pops out of nowhere. So we essentially just need to wrap everything here with a div like that. So let me just do one here, and then we'll kind of copy paste everything. So this just basically needs a class name of overflow hidden like that. Okay. And then we can duplicate this 3 more times, 1, 2, 3, and I'll just cut these in there. Okay, so that's cool. Perfect. Save. Everything looks the same, which is great. Okay, so now what we can do is I want to stagger these animations. So when we land on this page here, I want them to pop in one by one. And the only way I found to do that was with variants in Framer Motion. Okay, so I like to kind of make my own file. I'm not going to make a folder for it, but I'll just call this animation.js. Okay. And we'll just define basically 2 objects here. So we can see const container like that. And here you kind of do the same thing where you define a property. We'll call this hidden. And basically I'll put the opacity to 0. All right, so when we go back here to the actual element, we would add like initial, hidden, animate, or show would be our animate, right? So we'll just basically separate it here. And then we're gonna add a transition here when it shows, and we're just gonna say delay children by 0.5, which basically means when we arrive to this page, these are gonna be delayed by 0.5 seconds. And then we can add a stagger children, which is gonna add a delay between each element here, okay? So this is going to be low, like 0.2 seconds. So that's what the container needs to have. And the actual elements, so we're going to say item here. This is going to have a hidden and a show as well. It's quite weird how they do it. I'm honestly not a big fan of it, but it is what it is. I wish you could just add stagger, just stagger like that, and just have them animate automatically and not have to do all of this stuff. But we're going to do the same thing as we did to the H1, where we add a 100% to this, and when it shows, it basically goes to 0%. So let's do 0%, and then we'll add a little transition here where we can define the duration of 0.5. Okay? That's essentially it. So now we can go back here to our contact and import the container, and we can import the item from the animation. There we go. Cool. So now you go down to the, the parent, where you have the staggering animations. In this case, it's our UL. Gotta love the voice cracks. And then we just say variants here, and we can set this equal to the object, which is our container. And then initial is going to be hidden, and then animate is going to be show. All right, so we're essentially passing down the object. So on animate, add show, which is this, right? So you're essentially copy pasting that over. Okay, cool. So that's it. And then when we refresh, and let's go back here and try, as you can see, nothing happens yet, which is fine. But now what we can do is go on all of these individual elements, which are these allies. Oh, what we need to do is say M here. There we go. So now by default, it just does a fade in. You cannot see it because it's really quick, but that still animates in. So now we can go on each individual element. I'm just gonna select it like this. And just add an M in front of it. Cool. And then here, all we need to do is say variance equal to item. All right. And that's it. So now if we head over here and head back, look at that. We get that cool little pop out effect. Now, see, this is why it's a bit confusing, because like, why do we need to do this initial hidden end show on this parent container? That's just how it works. That's how you need to do it, even though you're not really caring too much about this opacity 0 to opacity 1, this fade in, because essentially what we're doing here anyway is we're delaying the children. So this is going to happen first, and then we get this nice pop out effect. But I guess you could do it like if you add a longer duration here on show, like 2 seconds, right, to the container, you're going to see that kind of the whole container fades in as well. But I don't like that effect, so I'm just going to remove it. But essentially, that's it. So here's a little challenge for you. I want you to go over to the home page, and now this should be quite simple because we have it separated here in our animation.js. So head over here, import it, and add it to these two right here. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this little effect. Quite fun, quite simple, nothing too crazy. And yeah, I have another exciting video for you guys coming on this week about forms, which is going to be really cool. So I'll see you then.